of having a show at my house is that we just have to work with whatever comes our way. So I'm going to take and use my mitt to pull this up. I'm going to touch it very, very carefully, because that way then I can turn these a little bit better. And you can see that they're getting done very nicely. It'll just be a couple of more minutes. This mitt isn't even insulated enough to really touch the grill pan, so you're seeing that I'm being really careful. The other thing that's nice about grilling vegetables is that you can use the same pan or dish that you brought the vegetables out in, because this is not meat and there's no problem with bacteria, and then you can take and coat the vegetables with all of the olive oil. So I'm going to run inside and get another baking dish, because as you know, I still haven't been able to grill all the vegetables. So when we come back, we'll be back in my kitchen. I'll have all the grilled vegetables set to go, and then I will show you how to put together pasta primavera.
Tired of mulching every year? Use Magic Mulch instead. It's an eco-friendly alternative to traditional mulch that lasts for up to 10 years. Looks just like wood mulch and is odor-free. Get 10% off. Go to magicmulch.net right now.
Buy local. Buy fresh at the Dixie Lee Farmers Market at Renaissance Farragut. Join us every Saturday morning from 9 to noon for locally grown produce, cheeses, herbs, potted plants, baked goods, pottery, handmade crafts, and more. This is our third season, and the Dixie Lee Farmers Market is still making it easier for you to buy fresh locally grown produce and fresh local goods, all offered from Tennessee farmers and artisans. The Dixie Lee Farmers Market, 12740 Kingston Pike at Renaissance Farragut.
I'm Don Sproles.
And I'm Karen Sproles.
We are the owners of the Lunchbox Restaurants.
Our cooking here is a lot like you would do in your own home.
It's like having you in our living room, having you in our dining room.
We do everything from scratch. All of our baking, all of our cooking is done from scratch. We know what's in our product. Our catering services are rather unique in that we're totally customized. We've done dinners for 2 people that a husband will pick up and surprise his wife with and take home. And we've done 1,500 box breakfasts. We can produce a wonderful event regardless of what your budget is.
We have customers that we feed today that we fed June 3rd, 1981. I think we can take a great deal of satisfaction out of that. We enjoy working together and have continued to do that all these years.
Want to host or produce your own show? Knox Ivy is the solution. Email info@knoxivy.com for more information.
The grilled vegetables are done, and as you can see, they really look nice. They've got a little bit of char marks on them. They're nice and tender. And what I'm going to do now is bring this dish together. I've got some olive oil that is warming, and now I'm going to saute some garlic. You do want to move this around a little bit so that it gets done on all sides. It's really flavoring the oil. What's really nice about this dish is that you could actually use leftovers. Say you've got some leftover vegetables or leftover pasta. This is something that you could put together really quickly, and it's very inexpensive also. So as you can see, the garlic is starting to brown. Sticking to my spatula a little bit. Just letting that saute. You can smell the aroma of the garlic. And now what I'm going to do is put in the pasta. I don't want to put in the vegetables yet because they're done and I don't want them to cook anymore. So you can hear the pasta on that oil because it's warm. And I'm just going to turn this a little bit. I boiled a pound of bow tie pasta. I'm using a little bit less than that for the show's sake, to make sure that you can see everything that's going on. So I'm just going to warm up the noodles a little bit, and I'm going to add a little bit more olive oil. Again, this is very easy to make. And if you're a vegetarian, it's a nice choice as far as a dish for you too. You could also make a pasta salad with all of these vegetables and just do it in a, as a cold dish versus a hot. Next, we're going to add a 1/4 cup of white wine. The wine gives it a nice flavor, and you'll hear it sizzling. And now the alcohol is burning off. And then it smells so good with the garlic and the white wine. And this is some of the pasta juice that we have, or pasta water that we have from when I made the noodles. And I'm just going to add right now about a 1/2 cup. I don't want it to be too thin, so I want it to stay together nicely. And you can see everything is coated as far as the noodles. And now I'm going to add the vegetables. And really, since they're hot, I'm going to just be coating them with the wine, pasta, water, and olive oil mixture. This is a very light dish and very low in calories too, because the vegetables just have a little bit of olive oil. I believe there's no trans fats actually. So you could also use a whole wheat pasta if you wanted. That would actually give you more fiber, excuse me. And you can see that the vegetables are it's just coming together so nicely. And that's really all there is to it. I'm going to put a little bit of pepper. I've already have salt on the vegetables, so I don't think I need to use any more salt. Now you could add a little bit more pasta water if you like a thinner type of sauce, but it's really not about the sauce. It's about the vegetables and the pasta. So I'm going to turn this off, and I'm going to put it into this bowl. And look at those colors. You've got the red pepper, the green asparagus, the mushrooms. It just all looks so wonderful. And then I'm going to top this with Parmesan cheese. So in a second, we're going to taste the mozzarella and tomato salad, and we'll have it with the pasta primavera.
Want your business to be seen by thousands daily? Knox Ivy is the solution. Email info@knoxivy.com for more information.
How are you using social media to connect people to your business?
More than 1.6 million people are actively engaged on Facebook right now.
What are your regular clients saying about you?
Generation Y now outnumbers the baby boomers, and 96% of them are using social networking sites.
Could these be your potential clients?
Since 2000, there has been a 130% jump in the number of Americans who use the internet.
Local results are integral to all major search engines.
And advertising online means you're right next to your point of sale.
Knox Ivy offers local businesses a cost-effective way to advertise.
We can help integrate your advertising with social media
and optimize your exposure. Knox Ivy, new answers for new media.
Steps up, it's in.
Sarah just scored the winning goal in the last game of the season. Her dad couldn't make the game because he's out of town on a business trip, but he was able to watch his daughter during that exciting moment because of Knox Ivy. Knox Ivy is unique because its specifically local content reaches a global audience, making it possible for local businesses to reach their target market but still connect with viewers worldwide. Knox Ivy, new answers for new media.
Both of the dishes are ready to taste, and I really want to emphasize how easy and quick both of these dishes were to make. You could do them very easily after a day's work or after you've been in school, and the cost is very low also. So I'm going to take a little bit of the mozzarella and tomato, and I'm going to first put some Parmesan cheese on top of the pasta primavera. This is Parmesan Reggiano aged, which again you can buy at the grocery store. It's very easy to get, and it again is a little bit more expensive, but you don't use as much, and it's so flavorful. It really adds to the dish. I'm going to stir that a little bit, toss it, and I really want to taste that red pepper, and I'll get a asparagus. Let me try that mozzarella. It's so good. It's really nice to have fresh mozzarella because it is just the flavor really comes out versus having it been in a package for, you know, weeks at a time. And let me have a bite of the red pepper. It is just wonderful. The grilled vegetables, by grilling the vegetables, it really brings out the flavor of the vegetables. And that Parmesan Reggiano just really is wonderful as far as the flavor. I also want to remind you to send me your recipes at my Gmail address, or also join my blog where you can get all the recipes from today's show and previous shows. I look forward to seeing you next time, and I will have another great show. James, now we're in the shade garden, and I love, yay, yes, yay. As you can see, my face is really red. That's because I've been sweating in 100-degree heat along with James, and that's how much we love gardens.
That's right.
And I have always been fascinated with shade gardens. I had a lot of them in my previous home in Michigan because it's lots of clouds, you know, it's a cloudy day, so in addition to the trees. And what I find fascinating is all of the different types of foliage, the sizes, the colors. Yes, sometimes the flowers aren't as beautiful as, say, an annual or perennial, but the foliage that the flowers have around it can be just so different and very variegated, like we have right here. Why don't you explain the shade garden?
Right. Mary, you're exactly right. Shade gardening can many times be a little bit more challenging to get the interest there because it is often a lot of green, and people are like, well, it's just so green. But really, other aspects of, just as you have in other design mediums, you know, you want nice color, you want nice texture, you want nice form, and create your interest that way. So it can be, you're working in a bit more of a subtle way when you garden in the shade. But there are some wonderful plants. You mentioned the variegated euonymus here, you know, just a beautiful, really brightens up this shady area. But hostas, you know, are beautiful in the shade, again with their foliage color and the variegation that they oftentimes present, but as well as their flower spikes. And then you can put in some annual flower color, impatiens, begonias, New Guinea impatiens, that like the shade. Right. And if you're interested in wildflower gardening or woodland gardening, you can get a lot of nice bloom color in the spring before the leaves get on the trees. Then it becomes another garden completely in the summer, and then another one still in the fall. So the shade garden offers a big variety of opportunities for a varied plant palette and really different feels to the garden at different times of year. Of course, in the heat of summer, you do want kind of that overgrown, shady, deep shade, especially here in the South. And so, you know, you can bring in some tropical plants that do well in the shade. Caladiums, things that aren't hardy here, elephant ears, some of the alocasias and calicaceas, and really create kind of a lush, cool feeling area in the shade. And it's a great place to enjoy being outside but not being in the heat.
Right, you get a lot of, it's definitely at least 10 degrees cooler here than it was out in the sun. And also what I like too with the tropicals is the color. So now you can bring in the color of the leaves along with maybe the cool greens of the more traditional perennials, which really liven it up, like you said before about the annuals.
Absolutely. And again, just what we were talking about with the variegation, variegated foliage, but also with just leaf color and all. And then you have the same thing happening in fall when everything changes its colors. So it's a wonderful opportunity to experiment.
Yes, I really suggest that people come here and experience this, because I've been here a couple of times, but never through the whole garden like today. And it really is amazing how each area really tells its own story.
Well, that's really what our mission is here, is to provide a place where we are a little bit of everything to different people, you know, because we do want to educate the public on what you can do. Now, an herb garden might not be of your interest, but a shade garden might. And we have both of those here.
Exactly.
So we have a little bit of everything and just a wonderful selection of plants. We have over 5,000 different taxa of plants here. So from huge mature trees to, you know, the smallest annual, to perennials, to ornamental grasses, just the whole gamut of plants, native, non-native, but always with the idea that these are good plants for the East Tennessee environment.
Right. And that's where we're going to go next, is to the perennials and do a segment, and then also to the annual garden.
Yes.
Hi, I'm Mary Gushin, and I want to welcome you to Mary's Kitchen and Garden. It's a beautiful fall morning in East Tennessee. The air is crisp and the birds are chirping. Today we're going to talk about apples, and we're going to make an apple cider cake and apple crisp. This recipe was given to me by Gina Oster of Knoxville. She's a real estate agent and a great homemaker. She actually has 3 boys and I have 3 girls. This recipe has a couple of different items that I actually don't have in my kitchen. One is a bundt pan and one is vegetable shortening, so I'm going to change it up a little bit. The first thing that I'm going to do is mix my oil and butter. I'm using an almond oil because that's what I have in my pantry, and I think that's important to be flexible, like I've showed you in other shows that we've done. It's nice to kind of change things up with what you have in your pantry and how your family eats. So I'm going to take and put the almond oil with the butter, and we're going to cream those two together using the low speed on your mixer. And this is exciting because this is the first time that I've actually made a dessert for the show. So it's going to be a nice change. This is room temperature butter. You can see that it's going together nicely. And the next step is adding the sugar. So I'm going to do it in portions, about 1/3 first. And then the next 1/3. You want to do this gradually so that you don't have sugar all over your kitchen. And as you can see, I'm taking my spatula and I'm working the sugar into the butter and oil mixture. So that's the end of the sugar. next step is to take the eggs and put them in one at a time. So I'm not going to talk through this because of the noise of the mixer, so you can just watch me as I put the eggs in. There's 6 eggs, and I'm going to gradually put them in one at a time. I've put them into a 2-cup Pyrex dish because it's so much easier to put the eggs in because I'm actually going to be pouring. So there's one. I've put the last egg into the mixture, and now we're going to put together the dry ingredients. I've got 3 cups of flour, and then I'm going to put 1/2 teaspoon of baking powder. This is a really nice tool. I don't know if any of you have these, but what's nice is that I can use 1 spoon for several different measurements, especially when you're using all dry ingredients. You don't have to worry about having different spoons because everything is dry. So this is just 1/2 teaspoon, and so what you do is you just push down on the lever, and then I'm going to put in the baking powder. This actually goes down to 1 teaspoon, so I'm only using 1/2. And then just 1/2 teaspoon of salt. And so that's just a few shakes of my salt shaker. After the baking soda, then it calls for 2 teaspoons of apple pie spice. I don't have apple pie spice in my pantry, but I know from looking at it at the grocery store that it consists of cinnamon, nutmeg, and allspice. So I'm going to put 1 teaspoon of cinnamon and 1/2 teaspoon of nutmeg and allspice. Okay, and then I stir these dry ingredients together. And then we're going to add the creamed sugar and butter, along with the apple cider. So this is an alternating procedure. The apple cider that I was able to get I got it at Kroger's. It comes from Ziegler's, and this is real apple cider. I really encourage you to get the type that's in the refrigerator section of the grocery store. And actually, if you can get it to a cider mill, that's even better. That's what we all do up north. But down here, there isn't very many places to get fresh cider. Fresh cider makes a huge difference, and it's just so wonderful as far as drinking it and also having it in your recipe. You could also make a hot cider beverage to go along with this. And again, I'm going to put in a small amount. This is 1 cup of the fresh cider, so I'm going to go about 1/4 cup. And I'm just going to use a spoon at this point so that the flour doesn't go flying all over the kitchen. Eventually, I'll start using my mixer again. And then I'm going to take another 1/4 of the creamed butter and sugar, or I should say that's about 1/3. Cider mills are so much fun up north. They are all over Michigan, Ohio, Indiana, and even I think Kentucky might have one in the northern part. It's a wonderful afternoon as far as being spent with your family. A lot of times they have pumpkins for Halloween, and you can pick your own apples, and they have fresh apple cider, which just tastes so good. And they also really specialize in fresh donuts. And there's nothing like a fresh hot donut that has a little bit of sugar on it. So now I'm going to finish up with the last portion of the creamed butter and sugar. Oh, let me get that last bit out of there. And now I have the last part of the cider. It's all coming together very nicely. And the last ingredient is vanilla. there is 1 1/4 teaspoons of pure vanilla. This is the real thing, and I again encourage you to buy real vanilla. It is more expensive, but use such a little amount that it really makes a big difference, especially when you bake. I've added 1 1/4 teaspoons of vanilla to the mixture, and now I am going to take and beat it on a low speed just to get all the ingredients together. Okay, so we've got all the ingredients together. And now I'm going to put it into 2 bread pans. Like I said, this actually would go into a bundt pan, but because I don't have one, I just decided let's just use 2 bread pans. This is a very dense cake, like bundt cakes are. So you can see that it's come together very nicely. And I'm going to split the batter into 2 pans. Let's do the first one. It really smells good too. You can smell the cinnamon and the apple cider. There's one. And this will be nice because I have a new neighbor and I'm going to give her one of these apple cider cakes to welcome her into the neighborhood. We're going to bake these once I rinse off my hands at 325. The recipe calls to bake them for 1 hour and 20 minutes, but because I'm using a smaller pan, I don't believe I'm going to need to bake them for that long. So what I'm going to do is time them for about 45 minutes, and this way I will check on them to see how they're doing. So we're going to put them in the oven. Going to put them into the oven at a 325 temperature. And I'm going to set the timer for 45 minutes. Like I said before, it may take a bit longer, but this way I will have my timer ready to go. When we come back, we're going to make an apple crisp and talk about different types of apples.
Buy local, buy fresh at the Dixie Lee Farmers Market at Renaissance Farragut. Join us every Saturday morning from 9 to noon for locally grown produce, cheeses, herbs, potted plants, baked goods, pottery, handmade crafts, and more. This is our 3rd season, and the Dixie Lee Farmers Market is still making it easier for you to buy fresh locally grown produce and fresh local goods, all offered from Tennessee farmers and artisans. The Dixie Lee Farmers Market, 12740 Kingston Pike at Renaissance Farragut.
Spending a few minutes of your day preparing a meal for your family is really simple. I'm Jeffrey DeAlejandro, partner of the Crown and Goose in the Old City. I want to reach out to local folks and teach them how to cook a deliciously simple meal, how to choose good local products, and where to find them. Let's bring simplicity back into the kitchen. Join me every Friday at 3 for Marble City Eats only on KnoxIvy.com.
Thank you to MetroPulse readers everywhere for voting Knox Ivy the best new business for 2010. We love our role as an active partner in telling the world about the people, ideas, and activities that shape East Tennessee. Cheers!
Hi, I'm Mary Gushin, and I'd like to welcome you to my new show, Mary's Kitchen and Garden. This show is all about healthy eating, which means using ingredients from your garden and market that are fresh and in season. The recipes that I'll show you are easy to make and not too expensive. Everyone is on a budget, and I want to show you how to cook without using preservatives. Healthy, flavorful meals that you and your family will love. And remember, this is your show. Email me with your suggestions about cooking and gardening for the show, plus recipes that you would like me to try. Join me for Mary's Kitchen and Garden, only on KnoxIvy.com. The apple cider cake is baking, and I thought I would take this opportunity to talk about apples. Apples are a lot like tomatoes. If you recall, we had a tomato show where I had several different kinds of tomatoes, and that's exactly what I have here with the apples. Red Delicious and Golden Delicious are probably the most well-known out of all of the apples in the country. They're wonderful apples that can be used in baking and in eating, and they are very sweet and crunchy, which the kids really like. What you also want to remember is that the peel of the apples have the most vitamins and minerals. So whenever you can get your kids to eat an apple, you really want them to eat the peeling too. This is a Jonathan Gold and a Honey Crisp. And these are also both really, really good. They're very crunchy, and I actually bought these in Kentucky when I was there earlier in the week. As I said, I haven't found a lot of orchards down in Tennessee, but I'm sure that downtown at Market Square, I bet we're going to find some apples this fall. This is the McIntosh and the sap apple. The McIntosh is wonderful as far as eating because it's really soft. Kids love it, very sweet and juicy. And the sap apple, and you can see it's a little bit different. It has some darker skin on it, but this is the really good apple for baking. Very good for making apple pies, apple crisp. And also, if you have an apple cake that would have actually shredded apple, you could use it. I also make an apple pancake that is really good, and this would be a good apple to have because it has a strong, sweet taste. And again, the McIntosh are really easy to eat because they're so soft, and the kids love them. But the best apple to use as far as baking goes from all the research that I've done is the Granny Smith apple because it's so hard and has that sweet, tangy flavor that it really gives a big punch when it comes to baking and for pies and crisp. But actually what I'm going to do today for the apple crisp is use a variety of different apples. So I'm going to push these out of the way because I've already got my apples ready to go. The first step in making the apple crisp is taking your apples that I have cored and peeled and putting some lemon juice on them to keep them from turning. Just going to mix those together. This is 4 cups of peeled, cored, sliced apples. And you can tell that I've got a couple of different kinds here. The Granny Smith are greener, and I used one of the saps and one of the Red Delicious too. So it should taste really, really good. So now I'm going to take my 9x13 pan and just put the apples over into the pan. And just smooth them into the baking dish. And I'm going to put this to the side because now I'm going to make the oatmeal crisp mixture. This is actually the Quaker oatmeal recipe, and what I've done is I'm going to jazz it up a little bit, which I'll tell you about in a minute. The first thing that I'm going to do is add 1/3 cup of flour. This is just mixing everything together. 1/3 cup of brown sugar, 1 cup of oats, and I'm going to jazz it up by adding not just cinnamon but also allspice and nutmeg, which is what we had earlier in the apple cider cake recipe. So 1 teaspoon of cinnamon.
And then I'm just going to add a little bit of allspice, about 1/8 of a teaspoon. And the same for the nutmeg. Now we mix the dry ingredients with melted butter. And you're going to find that this is about the easiest recipe that you can make, because after we mix the ingredients, then we're going to put it right over the apples and it's going to go into the oven. So that's about as easy as it can be. And I can tell you that going to an apple orchard is so much fun that if you have the opportunity to do it, if you're up north in the fall, it's really a wonderful experience. And you can pick all of your own apples, and you can also just experience watching cider be made and seeing how they do the donuts and picking a pumpkin for Halloween. It's a wonderful fall experience. So now that the crumble is put together, I'm going to take and put it over the apples. My secret ingredient is cranberries. Cranberries have that tart flavor, and I thought that would go so well with the sweet apples. So I've got a cup of cranberries here that I'm just going to sprinkle over the apples. And you can tell by the lemon juice that the apples haven't turned. So that is the real reason that you put the lemon juice on the apples. Then we're going to take and just spread the mixture over the apples. This recipe has been around for many, many years. Quaker Oats actually started in Akron, Ohio, which is where I am from. And they actually have a hotel in Akron that is former silos from the Quaker Oats factory. And it's really neat because when you go in the rooms, they're actually curved. And I believe it's a Hilton that is in Ohio as far as the brand. So now that we're done, we just want to put this into the oven, and we're going to bake it for about a half hour at 350 degrees. Because of the apple cider cake being in the oven at 325, I'm going to leave it at that temperature, and then I'll just have to bake it for a little bit longer. So we're going to come over to the oven. The apple crisp is ready to go into the oven. But before I put it in, I just want to take a minute to talk about opening a hot oven when you're baking. If this apple cider cake was a chiffon type of cake or a souffle or something that really needed to not have that oven door be open, I would be very concerned about opening the oven. But since we're on camera and we're doing a show, and the apple cider cake is more of a dense type of pound cake, I feel comfortable in opening the oven. So it kind of gives you an opportunity to see, and me, how the apple cider cake is doing. So I'm going to open the oven. And wow, the cider apple cake is doing beautiful. Grab my other pot holder. I'm going to move it over. And then I'm going to put in the apple crisp. The apple crisp is going to bake for about a half an hour. Since I've got the oven open, I'm going to take the opportunity to check it. And the way that I like to check a baked good is taking a knife and looking at how it appears when I insert it. You can see that there's a lot of batter here, which means that the cake has probably about 20-25 minutes left to bake, which is going to work out perfectly because the apple crisp is about a half an hour. So I'm going to put that on my plate, close it up, and I'm going to reset my timer for 30 minutes. I think I'm safe there, and I can always check it. Apples are such a wonderful fruit, can be used in so many different ways. I really encourage you and your family to eat apples just as they are as far as being fresh, because that's when you get the most minerals and vitamins from the fruit. You can also add peanut butter to do like a little dip with your apple slices, and cream cheese works really well too with apples. That way you're getting some protein from the peanut butter and the cream cheese, along with the vitamins and minerals from all the apples. So when we come back, we're going to do a tasting of the apple cider cake and the apple crisp.
Tired of mulching every year? Use Magic Mulch instead. It's an eco-friendly alternative to traditional mulch that lasts for up to 10 years. Looks just like wood mulch and is odor-free. Get 10% off. Go to magicmulch.net right now.
Buy local. Buy fresh at the Dixie Lee Farmers Market at Renaissance Farragut. Join us every Saturday morning from 9 to noon for locally grown produce, cheeses, herbs, potted plants, baked goods, pottery, handmade crafts, and more. This is our 3rd season, and the Dixie Lee Farmers Market is still making it easier for you to buy fresh locally grown produce and fresh local goods, all offered from Tennessee farmers and artisans. The Dixie Lee Farmers Market, 12740 Kingston Pike at Renaissance Farragut.
I'm Don Sproles.
And I'm Karen Sproles.
We are the owners of the Lunchbox Restaurants.
Our cooking here is a lot like you would do in your own home.
It's like having you in our living room, having you in our dining room.
We do everything from scratch. All of our baking, all of our cooking is done from scratch. We know what's in our product. Our catering services are rather unique in that